please.
Mr. Fuller? Mr. Coleman?
Here.
Ms. Materney? Here. Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Here.
Mr. Weber?
Here. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand if you're able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes of council for May 3rd.
All right, everyone has received a copy of those minutes. Hearing without any objections or no objections, we will consider the meeting minutes for May 3rd, 2022 for the city council, the public hearings and joint committee of the whole and everything else that we did. All of those together with no objections is approved. So,
Thank you very much. Special reports. We have no special reports today. Letters, communications, citizens' concerns. Not aware of any. Administrative reports. A couple things just quickly. I'd like to thank Oh Dear Diner for organizing the Memorial Day Parade, which we held on Memorial Day at 10 o'clock. We appreciate that. And the American Legion is having an event at the cemetery, and I want to bring everybody's attention to that. And also that this week is recognition of first responders, police particularly, and today there was an event to recognize and make sure that people make sure they fasten their seatbelt, especially with children in the vehicle, and children's safety devices. So a good word ticket event, and the chief spoke, and both chiefs spoke and did a great job on behalf of the city of Perrysburg. We have some openings for some of the commissions and committees. And so I'd like to recommend appointment for Allison Westmeyer to Perrysburg High School student to serve on PrAC. The term begins on 6/1/22 and it expires on 6/1/2023.
make the motion to appoint Allison Westmeyer to the PrAC committee.
Second?
Roll call.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Materney? Yes. Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes. Thank you. We have a couple other openings on PrAC, so if you know anybody, this one. City Administrator, do you have any reports?
No report.
Finance Director?
No report.
Law Director is out tonight. President of Council report.
No report, but a reminder, and I appreciate our law director for putting this on there, if I can find my sheet now. A reminder of the council about the committee holding on May 31st at 6 p.m. That is a special time, and that is going to be specifically for the land use plan. So just again, a reminder, on May 31st at 6 p.m. we'll have a land use plan discussion.
All right, Committee reports, Finance and Economic Development.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report, but I do have two pieces of legislation as a follow-up to a resolution of necessity we passed in April for the street tree assessment. The first one is an ordinance to proceed, and the second one is an ordinance to levy the special assessment for a 12-month period. So if there are no objections, we'll introduce them together. Hearing none. So I would like to introduce ordinances 31 and 32-2022 and move that the rules be suspended to allow for the readings by number and title only and to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second?
Roll call.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Materney? Yes. Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ordinance 31, 2022, an ordinance determining to proceed with the removal and special treatment of shade trees and controlling the blight and disease of same, and for planting, maintaining, trimming, and removing shade trees and along the streets within the public right-of-way of the city of Perrysburg. Ordinance 32, 2022, an ordinance levying special assessments for the removal and special treatment of shade trees and controlling the blight and disease of same, and for planting, maintaining, trimming, and removing shade trees and along the streets within the public right-of-way of the city of Perrysburg.
I move that ordinances 31 and 32-2022 be passed.
Second.
Discussion.
One quick question. I know this was brought up in PrAC committee meeting with the removal of these blight disease trees. I know that the city of Toledo has started the process with the Bradford pear trees. Is that something that is being in conversation with the service department with Bradford pear trees as an invasive species?
That conversation has not taken place at the service level, but it may have at this committee. I've not attended this committee for several months, so I can follow up with the service director and let all the council know.
Thank you.
I have a quick follow-up question about that. Don't we sometimes have, never mind, I'll ask you.
I know that the state of Ohio has declared an invasive species, and I know that we have several of those in the right of way, so I just thought that would be something we should be looking at. So, thank you. Yeah, they're pretty.
Roll call?
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen? Mr.
Yeah.
Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes. The next Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting will be Tuesday, June 14th at 5:30 PM. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Safety Committee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would there be any objection to reading these two ordinances together? I would like to introduce ordinance number 33, 2022, and ordinance 34, 2022, and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by title and number only, and to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second?
Roll call?
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ordinance 33, 2022, an ordinance expanding the designated outdoor refreshment area for downtown Perrysburg and enacting regulations and declaring an emergency. Ordinance 34, 2022, an ordinance creating a designated outdoor refreshment area at Levis Commons and enacting regulations and declaring an emergency.
I move that ordinance 33, 2022, and ordinance 34, 2022 be passed as an emergency measure.
Second?
Discussion?
Just wanted to add something here. Mr. Fuller, since he was out, he did want to have some brief input on here. I can share with some of the council members as to why he's not here today afterwards. But ordinance 33, 34, 2022, he had a comment on. So regarding DORA, he is in favor and it does have his full support. So although his vote will not count here tonight, he sees this as a fine opportunity to meet the needs of visitors, patrons of local business, and business owners by encouraging foot traffic and extending the liberties of those individuals whom this may apply to. After hearing from Police Chief Jones and his confidence that this is no risk to his officers and imaginal endeavor, he sees no objections to these ordinances.
Any other comments or discussion? If not, roll call?
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
The Safety Committee's next meeting will be Tuesday, May 24th at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Recreation Committee?
Mayor, I'm way out of order here. I have everything I need in front of me here. Minutes. So we did have a meeting, and I'm all over the place here today. But I do have a meeting this year. We had a meeting on May 10th, 2022. It was called to order at 6:30 p.m. by Chairperson Jonathan Smith. Committee members present were Jonathan Smith, Barry Van Duzen, and Corey Kuhlman. Also present was Bridget Canvas, City Administrator. There were no citizen concerns. Let's get through to the important stuff. Pickleball courts. Ms. Cabot explained that G6 Infrastructure LLC was the low bid that came back for the 2 sets of 4 pickleball courts for a total of 8 courts. The city engineers recommended 50% contingency, as they have not put anything in the ground on that side of Rotary Park. Ms. Cabot stated that in the 2022 budget, they are looking to include drinking fountains, benches, and sunshades, which would be amenities for the pickleball courts at Rotary Park. Mr. Smith mentioned that during the last PrAC meeting, some of the members had a conversation about basketball courts at Rotary Park in the future. Mr. Kuhlman would like to see some basketball courts added back into the plan for Rotary Park. Ms. Cabot responded that she has not received many phone calls since she has started about adding more basketball courts in the city. However, she has received calls for adding flexible field space for rugby, lacrosse, and soccer. Ms. Cabot added this summer they will be stepping up police patrols in the parks, especially in the evening hours, because they continue to have vandalism in public restrooms. There being no further objections, Mr. Kuhlman recommended this to City Council with Mr. Smith and Mr. Van Duzen abstaining. Next item was multi-use path. Ms. Cabot explained they have a proposal from Tetra Tech for the engineering service portion of the final section of the multi-use path along the Maumee River, also known as Phase 3. Phase 1, 2, and 4 are complete. This will start at the west end of Riverside Park and will terminate at Green Lane near the wastewater treatment plant. Ms. Cabot explained that part of this is challenging geographically and topographically due to a section of property currently being used to walk along the river not being owned by the city. There will have to be a boardwalk system of some sort to avoid this section as the part owned by the city goes through the marshy area. Mr. Smith was curious if there were any plans to eliminate the service road that goes directly off of Front Street to the wastewater treatment plant. Ms. Cabot explained there are no plans at this time to eliminate that. She added that they have engaged DGL to do a traffic analysis between Front Street and State Route 24 and the Maumee Perrysburg Bridge to make the access in and out of Orleans Park safer and easier to traverse, with one area to look at being that intersection. While on the topic of multi-use paths, Mr. Cool wanted to know about the approval of the grant for the path on State Route 25. Ms. Cabot explained that those dollars are programmed for July 1st, 2026 through June 30th of 2027. It is on the book to be designed and that will start in the next year. Mr. Smith asked to see a copy of the master plan for the multi-use paths and to look at having all the parks connected in a way. There being no objections, the committee is recommended this to the City Council. Picnic tables. Mr. Smith explained that at PrAC it was mentioned that members would like to see more picnic tables at Riverside Park, Pitt Park, and Rotary Park. More people would like to be able to eat along the river, and at Rotary Park, if the pavilion is rented out, there are not any other picnic tables available near the inclusive playground. Ms. Cabot said that she will talk with the service director about this. Mr. Smith wanted to add that there are 4 openings on PrAC, and if the city could reach out to Lee County Place and see if someone from there that resides in the city of Perrysburg may be interested in serving. And other business, Ms. Cabot noted the administration is working to put together the specifications for the 3 playground upgrades using the ARPA funds, and that they are seeing prices escalate from their last quote. As they get information in, they will keep City Council informed. Mr. Coleman would really like to identify a space for a dog park. Mr. Van Dusen agrees and thinks that Bicentennial would be a perfect fit. Mr. Smith would like to get feedback from PrAC and ask for it to be on the PrAC agenda for the next meeting. There be no further business. We adjourn to 7:25 p.m. Our next scheduled meeting is on June 14th at 6:30 p.m. And with an update, I can confirm that PrAC is reviewing the parks for dog parks that we talked about at the next meeting. I do have a couple of items here on the agenda. To get them out of order, just throw that away. I will go ahead and read these here separately. So I would like to introduce Resolution 47-2022 and move the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only and dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Resolution 47, 2022, authorizing an agreement with Tetra Tech and an amount not to exceed $200,000 for engineering services for a multi-use path along the Maumee River between Orleans Park and Riverside Park.
All right, I move that Resolution 47-2022 be passed.
Second.
Discussion.
Good question, Jonathan. When you say this phase 3, it terminates at Green Lane, is the multi-use path now, the way the ordinance title reads, that it now, with this completion, it would extend all the way between Orleans and Riverside?
So this is going to pick up right where Riverside
Yeah.
ends
Okay.
and continues to move all the way to where the green lane or that drive,
Okay. And
if that makes sense.
I was down there a few years ago, it's been a while. Does the multi-use path then continue west past the wastewater treatment plant? Or
Yeah, so if you go along the road, so it's supposed to jump on there and then it starts again right now where the Porta John is in Orleans. And then it goes underneath the bridge and then it comes up to the top of the Maumee River Bridge. And actually,
Or it goes
I apologize,
all the way
or it goes to the Rapid Roads parking lot as well.
It runs parallel to that access.
So it includes.
Yeah, it's gonna go, well,
I think it,
Bridget, correct me if I'm wrong here, because based off of the drawings I saw, it looked like it may end up going over Green Lane and through the woods, or is that not being looked at?
The current plan is that it terminates at Green Lane, but somebody would be able to traverse Green Lane to get over to Orleans Park. But one of the plans that Mayor Mackin is looking at more programming in Orleans Park. He has formed a committee of which some council members have participated in. And one of the ideas that is being tossed around is then taking that pathway where it would terminate at Green Lane and get it over to the start of the pathway that's actually in Orleans Park. And that could traverse, whether it be a boardwalk through that wetland area, whether it be adjacent to the roadway, but that is something that's being looked at.
Hopefully that clarifies.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And just to clarify as well, where that boardwalk would be is if you walk it right now, one of the residents is kind enough to let people walk through a portion of this property to get all the way through it. This is going to look at having a boardwalk over that marshy area, where it kind of cuts out a little bit, so that way we're not impeding on his property any longer.
All right, good.
Any other questions? If not, roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
All right, and for the next resolution, since I will be abstaining from this one, I've asked Councilman Coleman to introduce this.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to introduce Resolution 48, 2022, and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Abstain.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Abstain.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
And I will move. Wait, you got it. Introduce it.
Resolution 48, 2022, a resolution awarding a bid and agreement to G6 Infrastructure LLC in the amount of $278,079.40 for construction of 8 pickleball courts at Rotary Park and declaring an emergency.
Okay, I move that Resolution 48, 2022 be passed as an emergency measure.
Second.
Discussion.
I just had a quick question. When did we put this up to bid? Was that last fall?
No, that was just several weeks ago.
Oh.
I think it came through service, didn't it?
No.
Or was
No,
it
it came through recreation.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm asking is, there's some individuals in Bowling Green want to bid who want to build pickleball courts, and they just put them out to bid, and they said they got their bids for half the amount as twice the amount. For this and the one in Bowling. It's like $300,000. So we got a good deal. How did that happen? That's
Sounds good.
Any other discussion? Not roll call.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
That was the end of my report.
Thank you. Planning and zoning.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. We met on May 4th. I was present along with the committee members, Gary Van Huzen, Cody Coleman, Kate Sandrato, our law director, Brody Walters, and Leslie Zerlin from our planning and zoning division. There were no citizens' concerns that night. The prior month's minutes were approved. We first took up a proposed code amendment to section 121502 that would create two land use definitions, catering on-premise and catering off-premise. An amendment to another section, 122508, would amend the land use chart to include these two new use definitions and then designate their uses as either permitted, special approval, or prohibited. Ms. Sandrato noted that the proposed code amendments would prohibit what is currently happening in Mr. Ruffey's businesses as they exist. Brody Walters explained that the real component of his business is the non-conforming issue. Brody also added that from a economic development standpoint, allowing retail uses there means one less industrial user the city is able to house because there is someone inappropriately doing commercial business in an industrial location. Mr. Coleman asked if considering this makes the city more or less business friendly. I added that I will speak with Mr. Ruffey about the matter to clarify where this stands vis-a-vis his business. Ms. Sandrato would like to not allow a drive-through window with this legislation. This will be on our agenda next month. And Mr. Walters concluded by saying that the synergy of the small businesses at this location is great and is just the retail component that is an issue. Second item that night was a potential special approval use for warehouse bath and kitchen on Indiana Avenue. They want to have a large 16.5 feet by 30 feet wall mural on the east facade of the storefront that faces the Speedway gas station. Amy Siders, showroom manager, who was here tonight, by the way, stated that they chose that side of the building because it's completely smooth, with no windows, pipes, or low-hanging wires, as is the case on the other side of the building. Ms. Sider shared that they would be partnering with Sherwin-Williams on this project using an anti-graffiti sealant that would allow the mural to last 15 to 20 years. She plans to ask Perrysburg High School honors students, as well as Frank Elementary art classes, to be a part of the mural and in order to keep the community involved. We agreed 3-0 to recommend approval of this on an emergency basis to council. Excuse me, the final 4 items that night were rezoning requests that were subject to public hearing in the last meeting, I believe that's true, over on Carinade. We recognize that we've been taking 16 acres away from potential commercial development. And I was just asking, is that something we consider? Mr. Walters answered that the shopping plaza in front of this land, which contains the China City Buffet and other shops, if you can visualize that, has struggled to attract commercial retailers due to its poor visibility. The effort would be best to put rooftops near these businesses to help them survive. Brody also pointed out that the proposed land use plan calls for a mixture of commercial and residential in this area. Rob Johan of Choice Development was there and stated that they own and manage Preston Gardens, Lakes at Woodmont, and Owens Lake Commons. They have been in the Toledo area since 1985 and know the market. Rob Mr. Coleman asked if they do any monthly Airbnb rentals of the properties, and Rod answered that they do not. We then voted 3-0 to recommend the approval of this to City Council, and you'll see the requests are all the adjacent properties we talked about the public hearing last time. And you also see that all these rezoning requests were unanimously approved by the Planning Commission. We then adjourned. We will meet again on June 1 at 5:30 p.m. I think unless anyone has a problem, I would lump the warehouse bath and kitchen ordinance together with the Historic Landmarks Commission ordinance. I think both would be relatively uncontroversial. So then I would like to introduce ordinances 49 and 35-2022 and move the rules be suspended to allow for the reading by number of title only and dispense with the second and third readings.
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
I just want to confirm, you said resolution 49 and ordinance 35, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Mr. Van Duzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Resolution 49, 2022, a resolution granting special approval use to Waterhouse Bath and Kitchen Studio for a landmark feature signage exterior wall mural. Ordinance 35, 2022, amending codified ordinance chapter 1245.4913, duties of the Historic Landmark Commission, register of listed properties and historic districts.
I would then move the resolution 49 and ordinance 35-2022 be passed as emergency measures.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Van Duzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Matroni. Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, and I'll introduce the four that relate to the properties over on Carinade.
Excuse me, sorry, Tim, but the historic one was not an emergency.
Well, I mean,
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Gotcha.
I would then like to introduce ordinances 36, 37, and 38, 2022, and move the rules be suspended to offer the reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second and third reading.
Do you want to include 39 of that?
There were supposed to be four.
Yeah.
Next page.
Oh, I'm short one page, and 39.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ordinance 36, 2022, amending the zoning map of the city of Perrysburg, Wood County, Ohio to rezone property on Carolina Drive from C4 and C3 to RN and declaring an emergency. Ordinance 37, 2022, amending the zoning map of the city of Perrysburg, Wood County, Ohio to rezone property just south of the intersection of Lakeview Drive and Halls Trace Drive from C4 to RN and declaring an emergency. Ordinance 38, 2022, amending the zoning map of the city of Perrysburg, Wood County, Ohio to rezone property just south of the intersection of Lakeview Drive and Halls Trace Drive from C4 to RN and declaring an emergency. Ordinance 39, 2022, amending the zoning map of the city of Perrysburg, Wood County, Ohio to rezone property on Carolina Drive and Hall Trace Drive from C4 and C3 to RN and declaring an emergency.
All right, I would then move that ordinance numbers 36, 37, 38, and 39, 2022 be passed as emergency measures.
Second.
Discussion.
I do have another statement here from Councilman Fuller. I'll just read through it real quick. Over the last year, he has spent countless hours visiting residents in pursuit of serving our community, expressing the will of the majority, and ensuring the voices of the minority are equally represented. Now, in the capacity of a serving member, he has the honor to express those views collectively. The most common theme we'll be speaking to our residents was the strain of residential growth was put on the school system. Regarding ordinance 36 and 30 through 39 of 2022, this is surely a scenario that where there is a potential impact to affect the ever-growing needs of the Perrysburg School District. While he does not believe that the city should be managing growth per se, we should be working to encourage the right type of growth. Here we have a case of a private owner and developer who finds the market right for this type of investment in our community on a plot of land that has sat vacant for some time. He does not wish to fight the needs of free enterprise through denial of this development, and he will, however, ask the developer to be conscious of the impact on our schools. As of now, he has not seen the plans for the construction on this property. Therefore, there is still time to work with the developer to make sure those needs are at a minimum conveyed, and ask that this project not advance hastily. He would appreciate the engagement in the discussion by the developers with the mayor and council as well as Perrysburg School Board. So that's his statement on that. I do have a couple quick questions if you don't mind. The first question I have is, I know it says we're passing this as an emergency. Is there a reason for the emergency measure?
No, other than to let the project get off and running, but if folks have a problem with that, I mean, I guess I can withdraw the emergency part of the motion.
I'll say, I view this as an emergency, or at least from our discussion is, hey, we have someone investing in the community. If we're voting to approve that with the ever-changing costs of construction, supply chain issues, I don't want to prevent someone from investing in our community at a rapid pace. So I don't want to increase their costs by delaying things that not passing as an emergency would cause.
Granted, it's labeled as an emergency, but this is the fourth hearing on it before we pass it. There had been.
Any other discussion?
I do have a couple of questions. So it sounds to me that council doesn't want to change the emergency measure on that one. And comfortable with this. So if I understood correctly from Brody's explanation, that according to the new land use plan that has yet to be enacted, this is a mixed area of residential and commercial, is how I understand it, correct?
That's correct.
You know, I just want to be certain that it's still matching with what our land use plan is, and that's how I understood it. And then, of course it can. Once this is approved, I know that there has been some residents have expressed concern about the growth with this. What is the timeline that you potentially have for the development of this project?
I
Thank you for the question. Rob Shahai of Choice Development. Within months, we would like to begin. We have not finalized a start date, but we would
Could
like.
start within a month, but so it would take time to.
Yeah, I mean, within a year. Yeah.
Because if I understand correctly as well, this is more of a question for the administration, is with changing the zoning, it's not granting necessarily approval of what's going to go on there, because that still has to go through other steps and processes. And that's what I've explained to some residents as well, that just because this is changing doesn't mean that it's going to be a 3-story high-rise or anything at that point. We don't know what's going to go there. But that'll be something that you'll be working on with the city
Yes.
zoning departments.
Yes.
And Rob, the project, is Lakes and Woodmont the one right across the street?
That's Residences at Kirinate, the one just
Okay,
south.
this is a Karen. Okay,
Yes.
that's not your project.
That's,
it's their project.
no,
But if you look at the Residences at Kirinate, and if you drive through there, you'll see it doesn't generate that much in the way of kids. I'm not going to say all, that's certainly not correct. I saw some kids there, but it's an empty nester type place, and I think Rob's development is going to be more in the nature of that, and certainly a high-rise, huge apartment building, throw a lot of kids in. And you know, we get into the anti-growth discussion in conjunction with the schools. Every time a school levy's up, I'm sure all of us hear from citizens, don't let anyone else come into town, you know, don't develop another acre of land. But I know the school board historically looked at that issue from time to time, and they've never encouraged us or asked us to adopt anti-growth measures, which in the long term I think could be detrimental for the community in its overall development. So I understand the concern. I got to, as Jan noted, we had public hearings, we've been through this, it's been to the planning commission, and ironically today, you know, I'm sure we all got 2 emails. So I know everyone's concerned about growth, but you don't necessarily solve the problems facing the community as a whole by just pulling up, you know, all the ladder and saying no more growth in town. And so I'm thinking specifically from the school's perspective, I know Mike believe that's the best way to approach things, but I think you've got to look at a broader perspective, and I'm confident our school board can address what needs the schools will have.
I would like to piggyback on that there is no evidence that apartments are put a strain on school districts. That's you show me the evidence, go out and get the statistics, and then I'll believe it. Because from what I'm seeing, it's not there.
I think it's also important to know that through the discussions of our land use plan, one of the identified needs is residential, multifamily, temporary housing. So this kind of gets rid of a commercial district that it didn't seem like development was going to occur, and we're addressing a different need. I think it's just a smart rezoning. So.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
And the report.
Thank you. Personnel Committee.
No report. This week we have our meeting next week, 24th at, I believe it's 6 p.m. Nothing further.
Public Utilities does not have a report or anything.
There's no report for public utilities, and the next scheduled meeting is May 25th at 6:30 p.m.
Service Committee.
No report, next meeting is May 25th at 5:30 p.m.
Any other business, council?
I do have something I want to say that's before the state legislature right now that we should be very worried about, and that is the regulation. There's a law before the legislature working its way through that would prohibit us from doing any type of regulation or taxing of Airbnbs, which would be a shame because they generate the same type of dollars that hotels do without having to pay the bed tax, which allows us to do certain things that they're not paying. I would recommend that we come out against that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Hearing none opposed, we are